Is Gareth Southgate the most tactically nuanced and tactically fluid manager? No, definitely not. We saw that. He's not. Is he the best man manager in world football? No. But he is the perfect manager for this squad, in my opinion. Like I said, player for player, they're unreal. It's just that there's nothing that is showing me. Didier Deschamps is not showing me a way of playing football that excites me or that convinces me that they'll be able to break teams down. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Two Foot Attacker podcast. I'm your host, as always, Ari Stamatakos, and it has been a non-club footballing week. I was very tempted to not do this episode, but not do it in the conventional sense in which I would normally do it. I was tempted to get a guest on, but to be honest, left it too late to organise one. And I just thought, let's actually speak about some international football, because I don't really speak about it a whole lot on this podcast. It's more club-based, but I feel like it was the right time considering it's the final international break until the World Cup. I think it's apt. That's the word I'm looking for. I think it's apt that I discuss what this international break, some of the things that have happened, and just dissect it towards the World Cup in November. As you can tell by the title, 5 things we learned. So I'll touch on those 5 things. You can probably tell by the timestamps. If you're watching on YouTube, those 5 things. So if you want to just watch the thing that I speak about, then by all means go do that. But before we start, I wish everyone had a fantastic week. Hope everyone was safe, stay well, stay safe, stay out of trouble. I would implore you all, as I do at the start of every episode, to subscribe to the 2 Foot Tackle podcast on YouTube. Like it, like all the episodes. Put the notification bell on so you don't miss clips or anything like that. TikTok, Instagram, 2 Foot Tackle podcast. Twitter, 2FTPod on Twitter. And of course all the audio platforms, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, the whole 9 yards. I say it every week. I'll continue to say it because any support and any love that this podcast gets, it means the world to me. And yeah, it really makes me feel happy, and it drives me to continue to do this and drives me to get better at this. So let's start and let's crack in. Now I'm not gonna reveal the 5 things I'm actually going to speak about until I speak about them. I feel like that's probably good for suspense reasons. I say this, there's timestamps at the bottom of the video, so you could probably figure it out if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening to it, you're just going to have to wait in suspense. And if you're watching on YouTube and you're not looking at the timestamps, then I guess you have to wait in suspense as well. So we're going to touch on 5 things, who went into footer, of course, and then we'll preview the week as club football returns. I'm recording this on Monday the 26th of September. So anything I say is maybe a little bit of a spoiler for some topics that I'm going to speak about, but anything I say is before the England-Germany game that is happening at 4:45 Tuesday morning Australia time. So if I say something and it's then out of date, then you know why. Spain-Portugal hasn't happened as well. So anything I say, hence, I'm just making this disclaimer right now. So if I say anything about any of those teams and then they end up winning 10-0 and whatever I say is completely voided, then you know why. Anyway, let's go. Let's crack on. Let's start with the first thing I want to speak about. Now, this is something that has been in the back of my mind for quite a while, especially in the come up to the World Cup, and especially in the come up to this, or to what was the Euros as well, especially I should say. Now, it's going to be on France. Let's speak about France for a bit. Now, to say that they're currently in a tumultuous situation is an understatement. It's an understatement. They've won 1 of their past 6 games. They've won 1 of their past 6 games. That was a 2-0 win over Austria. And they've lost against Denmark, Croatia, and then Denmark once again. It's a weird build-up to a World Cup for France. Now, we all know that their exploits in the last World Cup. They won it, I wouldn't say comfortably. I would say they won it in the manner in which they needed to win it. And of course, the Euros, we all know what happened there around the 16 exit against Switzerland after a pretty disappointing group stage where I think they won one and then drew the other two. I'm pretty sure. Now, this French side is bizarre to me. Now, those who know me, know those who've had conversations about this team with me in the past know that I don't rate them at all. Know that, and I've spoken about this on the podcast before when the World Cup draw actually came out. Said they were going to fail, and I still am of that belief. Now, with France, I said in the come up to the Euros, and I think this my thought process behind it has to go back to what I was thinking about before the Euros. Now, I was sitting down doing my my predictor, and I looked at France, and everyone had France in the final. Everyone had France in the semis or the final because of the talent. Like, the talent they've got is unbelievable. However, I looked at them and I thought, I just don't rate them. And the reason why I don't rate them is that because if you look at what they were able to do at the World Cup, and this is going to tie back to what I think about them in general, right? If you look back and think about what they did at the World Cup, they beat Australia in the first group game, which funnily enough is the first group game they'll play in November, through a pretty dodgy penalty and an own goal. They then beat Peru 1-0, which, yeah, right, is a pretty good win, but they didn't dominate that game by any means. That was a very even game. They drew against Denmark. They copped 3 against Argentina. Granted, they won 4-3, but that was pretty much all to do with some Mbappe brilliance on the counter-attack and a freakish goal from Pavard. Once again, got dominated in that game. Uruguay, they won 2-0 from what I can remember, a spilled shot by the Uruguayan goalkeeper for the second goal, and I think a corner for the first goal. And then they beat Belgium 1-0 off a corner as well. And then, of course, we all know their exploits against Croatia, where they won off a dodgy VAR decision for the handball, off an own goal, and 2 shots which Subasic really should have saved in the second half. Once again, they got dominated in that game as well. That thought process and looking back at that tournament made me think there's a very clear and very easy way to beat France, and that is to not overexpose yourself. And we saw that, and I predicted Hungary would get a result against France because Hungary played a way of football where they were compact, they were solid, and they looked to frustrate France. France don't have the tactical ability to break down teams. They don't. France's disparity from talent to actual tactics is probably one of the worst in international football. They are terrible. Like, seriously. They cannot break teams down at all. We've seen it in their last 6 games. They've only won once. They can't break any team down. They rely too heavily on individual brilliance. They rely too heavily on counterattacks, and they rely too much on a Paul Pogba piece of individual brilliance and Mbappe counterattack, corners, set pieces, whatever. For the talent that they have at their disposal, it is very concerning. It is very concerning because they got dominated against Germany in their first group game and got away with a win off a counter-attack, I think. Or off an own goal even. Hungary, they dominated the game against Hungary, but as you should when you're France, and they still couldn't win. And then against Portugal, it was a pretty even game where Portugal probably should have won. I think from what I can remember, they had pretty much more chances. Granted, I think they scored 2 penalties. But those 3 games gave me no confidence heading into the game against Switzerland, and I called it. Switzerland were going to win. Granted, they won on penalties, but you can't exactly tell me that was a convincing performance from France, especially in the first half. They got 3-1 up and they got comfortable. And even in extra time, they couldn't break Switzerland down. And Switzerland, let's not remember, had a penalty to put them 2-0 up. I can't remember, let me check who had that penalty and missed. If Ricardo Rodriguez scores that penalty, Switzerland go 2-0 up and win the game. And then 5 minutes later, they're 2-1 down. And then 20 minutes later, Paul Pogba puts them 3-1 up, and then we all know what happened. France, the reason I say this, and France are just, I've said this for a long time, actually. And I say a long time, it was before the Euros. And those who know have receipts. And you know who you are. France are not a good international football team. They're not. That World Cup is probably, looking back at it, watching some of the games back, probably one of the least convincing World Cup wins I've ever seen, or I should say not I've ever seen, but that I've ever looked at. I think the Germany side of 2014 destroys that France team in 2018. Absolutely destroys them. That Spanish team in 2010 passes them off the park, and it's not even funny. Like, it's not even funny how easy that Spanish team in 2010 just destroys that France team. This France team. It's not even funny. And the reason I say this, not because I have a vendetta against France, not because Australia versus France, and I want to hype myself up to think that Australia can get a result against France. But I'm convinced. I think all three teams in that group can get a result against France. If Hungary can get a result against France, Tunisia, Australia, and Denmark can definitely get results against France. The formula's there. They've changed to a 3 at the back system, but all that's done is just moved players around. Unless something clicks from now until the World Cup, I guess I'll be proven wrong. Unless something clicks from now until the World Cup, I guess we'll see. But for the longest time, they played like a 4-2-3-1 system that kind of moved to a 4-4-2 in a sense with Mbappe. Well, it was Mbappe up front with Griezmann kind of pushing alongside him. Now with Benzema into the fold, who for somehow adding Benzema hasn't improved them. All it's done is just given them another player that can produce a bit of individual brilliance for them. Now, really, it's going to be Mbappe on the left, or what it was Mbappe on the left, Benzema up front, Griezmann behind, and then maybe Dembele or someone else on the right-hand side. So, I mean, I don't want to make myself sound like an idiot. But I think I said this at the time. I don't think France will get out of the group in the World Cup. I don't. I think Denmark beat them. I think Denmark beat them quite, not comfortably, but I think they just beat them. I think they are much more tactically fluid than them, and I see either one of Australia or Tunisia taking a point off them, maybe even both. That's not because I rate Australia or I rate Tunisia, not in the slightest. I just don't think France will be able to break those teams down if those teams set up in the right way. And there's been a blueprint there. They've won once in their last 6 games, and they got beat by Denmark. They got beat by Denmark this morning, and the side they put out, Areola, Saliba, Upamecano, Badiashile. Three of the best young centre backs in the world. I'm sorry. Badiashile is a very, very exciting prospect. Upamecano has proven himself, and Saliba's had a fantastic start to the season. On the right, you had Pavard and then Ferland Mendy as either fullback. You had Camavinga and Tchouaméni as a double pivot. That is ridiculous. And then you had a front three of Giroud, Mbappe, Griezmann. How can that team not score against Denmark? And how can that team not at least create anything meaningful? Denmark were just so much more, not clinical, but so much more dangerous, especially going forward. And that's not something that we've come to expect from a France team who have for so long been this ruthless, exciting, exhilarating team. Who like, if you look at some of the players that didn't play that probably would start, you'd say Varane. I'd say maybe Varane over Badiashile, and then maybe Lloris in goal over Areola. But apart from that, that's pretty much full strength team, and maybe Benzema up front instead of Giroud. But there's just nothing here. There's nothing exciting, and there's nothing willing to show me, or there's nothing showing me that they're a good football team. Their individuals, probably player for player, the best group, the best squad at the World Cup. It probably will be. Maybe France will challenge. Brazil will challenge that. But like I said, player for player, they're unreal. It's just that there's nothing that is showing me. Didier Deschamps is not showing me a way of playing football that He's not showing me a way of playing football that excites me or that convinces me that they'll be able to break teams down. Unless they go back to the four at the back system, I doubt it. I think he's pretty staunch on that three at the back system. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. And I said this in not November. I said this when the draw came out. I don't think France will get out of the group stage, and I back that. This international break, and the more I've looked into France, and the more I've kind of figured out what they're doing, this France team won't make it out of the group stage at the World Cup. Definitely not. I don't know who gets in over I don't know who gets in over them. I'd love it to be Australia. Love it to be Australia. But there's nothing there that convinces me about them. Nothing there that convinces me about them. They're a group of individuals that on the international stage won't do anything. Too reliant on Mbappe, too reliant on Paul Pogba. They were too reliant on N'Golo Kante to be their pretty much only defensive midfielder. And now with Tchouameni and Camavinga, they've got a little bit more security. Granted, neither of them will be as good as Kante is defensively, but at least they get more depth there in that area. Their players, like I said, individually player for player, they're so exciting, but as a team, they're bland, they're boring, they're dull, they're uninspiring, they're incoherent, they're just so disconnected. And that's what's telling me that they won't make it out of the group stage. It's going to be interesting. And if I'm proven wrong, feel free to come at me and give me all this. But if I'm right, and I think I will be right, because I called their downfall at the Euros, and I'm going to call their downfall at the World Cup. This has nothing to do with the curse, by the way. That World Cup winner's curse. Maybe it does. Maybe it does. And maybe this is just like another chapter of this really bizarre tale. But I think they could have not even made the World Cup last time. And this would still be my opinion of them. I'm not convinced. Anyway, let's move on. That's probably enough of that talking point. Let's go from France and let's go to England, shall we? Let's go to England and let's touch on England, shall we? Because there's a lot to speak about. Now, England are probably the second most interesting team to talk about besides France. And when you look at this England team, there's a lot of people screaming Southgate out, really, really calling for his head. And this is something that has confused me pretty much ever since it started happening. I've never really understood it. Now, when you look at Gareth Southgate, you look at this squad, is this squad really a European Championship finalist squad? Probably. I would say it's close. I would say when you look at that Italian squad that beat them, when you look at that Spanish team that could have versed them, if France had just had a better tournament, I think their squad is comparable to quite a few squads. I don't think it's exceptional. I think it's actually pretty on par with most squads that I think their squad's on par with Germany's team. I think this squad is being a little bit overrated. I think their squad's on par with his Germany team. I think this squad is on par, like player for player, this squad is worse than the French team. Player for player, it's worse than the Brazil team. Player for player, it's probably worse than the Argentinian team, maybe. Actually, they're probably on par. The Italian team, I think it's on par with. The Spanish team, I think it's on par with. The Dutch team, I think they're a little bit better than the Netherlands. So when you take that into consideration, achieving a World Cup semi-final and then achieving a European Championship final off the back of a 2014 dismal World Cup campaign, a 2016 dismal European Championship campaign, a 2010 dismal, or 2012 even dismal Euros, a 2010 dismal World Cup, a 2008 non-appearance at the Euros, a 2006 dismal World Cup. You take all of that into consideration, the fact that they've reached a World Cup semi-final and a European Championship final in which Marcus Rashford kicks a ball 4 centimetres to the right, England probably win the Euros. The overreaction and the whole get Southgate out, sack him now, is you're wasting the talents of this squad, is bizarre to me. Is so bizarre. Gareth Southgate is England's second most successful manager in history. History. That's fact. That's fact. I don't know who was the manager in '66. I probably should. And then you have Sir Bobby got him into the semis of the World Cup in '90. I think it was a Sir Bobby. I don't know. They got into the semis of Italia '90. I don't know. I am pretty sure it was Bobby Robson there. And then you have Gareth Southgate getting him into the semis in Russia and the final at Wembley. Well, at the Euros. Is Gareth Southgate the most tactically nuanced and tactically fluid manager? No, definitely not. We saw that. He's not. Is he the best man manager in world football? No. But he is the perfect manager for this squad, in my opinion. I don't think this squad... I think he's getting the most out of this squad, to be honest. I genuinely think that. And the calls for him to get sacked are fucking ridiculous. With all due respect, are ridiculous. Yeah, he lost a couple of games. Yeah, he lost 4-0 to Hungary. Yeah, whatever. He also got you guys to a final of the Euros. Let's just remember, the Euros previous, what happened? What happened 4 years earlier? Or 5 years earlier? You lost to Iceland. Let's put this into perspective here, yeah? Put this into perspective. They got into the World Cup semi-final in 2018. What happened 4 years earlier? You lost to Costa Rica. Or drew to Costa Rica. Who gives a fuck? Put this into perspective. Really put this into perspective. And maintain your expectations, yeah? Because listen, England is not a great footballing country. You've won one tournament in the history. One tournament. Denmark have the same amount of tournaments won as you, right? So let's just temper the expectations. Yeah, you have a great squad. It's not as good as you guys think it is. It's good. But when you have Harry Maguire within that squad, come on. Come on. Should Harry Maguire be playing? No. Should he be on the plane? He should probably be on the plane as the 5th choice centre-back. But what you have with this tumultuous fan base getting on the back of Gareth Southgate is this isn't going to work if you're just going to slander him. It's not going to change from now to the World Cup. So why aren't you getting on his back? Why are you getting on his back? If English people genuinely think that sacking Gareth Southgate right now is the move, then I don't know what the fuck you're thinking. Then literally you're delusional. You are absolutely delusional. Sacking Gareth Southgate right now would be the worst decision in modern English football for a long time. For a long time. It would completely ruin everything. Completely ruin everything. We saw, didn't Spain sack their manager a week before the World Cup in 2018? And they got bundled out by Russia. Come on. Let's be serious here. And you can say what you want about 2018. They got an easy draw. So you beat who's in front of you. Colombia were a good team. Sweden are a hard team to break down. And you beat them both. Granted, it wasn't comfortably, but you beat them both. World Cup in the Euros. Beat Croatia comfortably. It was only 1-0, but you beat them. Drew to Scotland, and Scotland came for a draw, so you can't really put a whole lot of blame on you guys for that. Beat Czech Republic. You beat Germany, which is, I don't know how that isn't built up to what it actually is, because it's a massive result. You destroy Ukraine, I think it was 4-0. And then you beat Denmark 2-1, a very good Denmark team. Like a very good Denmark team. A well-drilled Denmark team. And then like I said, you're 5 centimetres away from beating Italy. Like, you're 5 centimetres away. Marcus Rashford kicks that ball 5 centimetres to the right. England win the Euros. So this whole notion of sack Southgate, it's not working. It just shut up, like, because it is working. Until it's proven to not work when it matters, then say it. If Gareth Southgate goes out, because you can't say, I want to preface this by saying you can't say that he's wasted this group of players, or that he's wasting this group of players. Because why? Because he lost 4-0 to Hungary in the Nations League. In the Nations League. Like anyone gives a fuck about the Nations League. Gareth Southgate could lose every Nations League game 10-0. I genuinely don't think it would matter one bit. If Gareth Southgate lost 4-0 to Hungary at the World Cup, okay, then there's issues and then something needs to be done. It's the Nations League. Just relax. The Nations League doesn't matter. So the fact that you're saying that he's wasting this group of players is so bizarre, because why do you care about the Nations League? If you waste this group of players by not doing well at the World Cup, then there's the issue. Then there's something that needs to be talked about. But he's had two major tournaments and he's succeeded both times. Did England think that they were going to make the semi-finals of the World Cup in 2018? No. Did they think they were going to make the final in 2020 or 2021? No. Did they? What's their expectation this year? I think they'll win it. I said this in February. I think they'll win it. So, what the whole sack Southgate thing is about, I don't understand. Yes, the picking his favourites is a little bit of a, maybe not cop out, or a kind of explanation. The constant Harry Maguire selection, the constant Jordan Henderson selection at times, Jordan Pickford as well. But is that really grounds to sack him? Is it? Is it really grounds to sack him? I don't think it is. What you have is a manager and a group of players that have clicked. Quite clearly they've clicked, because they've clicked when it matters. Just because they don't click in the Nations League or in friendlies doesn't mean that they won't click at the World Cup or at the Euros, because we've seen that they have. The squad taken from 2018 to 2021 was very different. I can just, a couple of names off my head. Jamie Vardy didn't play, but Jesse Lingard, Dele Alli, Ashley Young, like, these players didn't play in 2021. They were very heavily featured in 2018. Eric Dyer as well. Just a couple of names. And this squad is still young. This squad, I think this England squad will hit its prime next World Cup. I think in 2026 and even in 2024 for the next Euros. Because you have Harry Kane will be what? 32? 33 maybe in 2024 or in 2026. You have Foden will be in his prime. Mount will be in his prime. Sterling will probably just be beyond his prime. Sancho will be in his prime. Bellingham will be in his prime. Phillips will be in his prime. Rice will be in his prime. Tomori will be in his prime. Reece James, Alexander Arnold will be in their prime. Ben Chilwell will be in his prime. John Stones will probably just be beyond his... Actually, no, John Stones will be in his peak. So, like, this squad isn't a finished squad. Let's not pretend that this is England's last chance, because it's not. It's not England's last chance. So the upheaval and the uproar around it's not working, get rid of him, is so reactionary, so delusional, and so arrogant. So arrogant. He's ridiculously arrogant. But I think that's what English fans have. I think English fans have had a bit of a bad rap over the past couple of years, especially with the whole football's coming home thing. That's obviously a joke. And there's a bad bunch in every supporter base. There's a bad bunch in every group. But seems to be a vocal majority seem to be Southgate out from what I've seen. And I don't get it. But yeah, that's all I wanted to touch on Southgate, because I feel like it's a good place to. It's a good talking point, because yeah, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. All right, let's move on to the third talking point. Now, those were the two major talking points. These three talking points are just going to be some just tidbits which I wanted to speak on, just because it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting what. I don't know where these three talking points will lead me, especially this one coming up. Hopefully I don't get into a rant, but we'll see. So I have some water there. But let's go. Point number 3. Point number 3 is Nations League games 2 months out from a World Cup is one of the dumbest decisions ever. Now, we've seen what... And I've spoken about the fixture pile-up, which is going to kill these players. It's absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. What is the point? I just don't get the point of having Nations League games scheduled 2 months out of a World Cup when you're already backpiling fixtures as it is. It's one of those things where it's like, I guess this is just football elitism gone absolutely bananas, to be honest. Because why? We saw Jules Koundé getting injured when Barcelona I think they have the El Clasico coming up very soon, and Jules Koundé gets injured. For what reason? For what reason does that need to happen? Why does he need to play these games? I think the Nations League in itself is a good concept. I think the way it's been executed is very, very poor. Very, very poor. Because why is it... It's like the Euro... It's literally the Conference League of international football. Or European football, anyway. I just don't get it. Just have friendlies. Or have mini tournaments. That... I guess that's what the Nations League is. But, do we really need it? I guess it's the whole, it gives the likes of your Lithuanias, your Kazakhstans, your Cyprus, your Latvias, your San Marinos, these type of countries, it gives them a chance to actually play games that aren't them getting smashed 10-0 by England in World Cup qualifiers. But the fact that it's 2 months out from a World Cup, why? It is the most unnecessary. It's the most unnecessary fixturing I've ever seen. Qualifying's done. If you want an international break, give every team a friendly, not two, a friendly, where they can just experiment with nothing on the line. I guess that's what most big teams essentially treat the Nations League as, just a big fucking group friendly session. But yeah, I feel for Barcelona now. Jules Koundé goes down injured in the most unnecessary way possible, and if I'm not mistaken, they have an El Clasico coming up very soon, which is just fucking perfect, isn't it? It's just absolutely perfect. Let's have a look. If we go, they do play Real Madrid on the 17th of October. And in the meantime, they've got 2 games against Inter Milan in the Champions League. And they've got a game against Bayern Munich in a month's time. Will he be fit for that? I don't know. I don't know what the extent of the injury is. But I just... Fuck it. It's just ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. And it goes to show goes to show football is not for the fans anymore. It's not for the players. It's for the corporates. It's for the big organisations, and it's for the cash money, the cash dollar. That's all it is for. That's all it's for. Because what's the point? What's the point? We saw football survive with no fans. So really, they're just treating these players like robots, and the fact that they're scheduling these stupid games a month out from or 2 months out from a World Cup is one of the most absurd decisions I've ever seen. But let's go to the next. Let's go to the next talking point. Second last tidbit before I finish up with some Australian international football news. Not news, but just talking points. Sorry to spoil it. This is the fourth thing I thought about. It's going to be one of the most competitive World Cups in a long time. Because no team has really asserted their dominance. I've already said England. I think England will win it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I think they'll win it at a canter. I think it'll be tricky. I think it'll be difficult for them. Now, why I say that is because yes, I think this might be a little bit of a contradiction, but yes, they haven't proven themselves in Nations League, so you can only assume that form will be not continue, but that you have to take that form into account when judging their World Cup, their hopes for the World Cup. But even still, obviously France, we know my thoughts about them. Spain haven't really shown themselves. Netherlands haven't really shown themselves. Germany have been okay. I think maybe you look to South America and look at Brazil and Argentina. They're probably the two teams that will be looking for, they'll maybe not dark horses, but that will like surprise a few in a sense of everyone knows how good Brazil and Argentina just are because of their Brazil and Argentina. The players that they've got are always good, but the fact that they're just going to be a little bit overshadowed by the Euros as well, a little bit, and by England and by France. I feel like Brazil and Argentina are going to be very good in this World Cup. Brazil especially. They're probably the best chance at, if they're going to win it well and win it comfortably. But this is going to be a very competitive World Cup. Very competitive World Cup. I can see it if we just bring up the groups. If we bring up the groups, I can see, I don't know what this means for like permutations or like if this team finishes second or whatever. I can see, like, if we go through each group, I can definitely see Qatar getting through Group A over Senegal. Definitely. I can definitely see Iran getting through in Group B. I can definitely see Wales or USA. I think Group B is going to be very entertaining. Group C is probably a very interesting group as well. Poland, Lewandowski really hasn't shown how good he is on the international stage. Maybe this is the tournament where he can do that. Mexico are always solid. And Saudi Arabia, I think, are going to be a little bit of a dark horse. Group D, Australia, Denmark, France, and Tunisia. We all know my thoughts on that. Japan, Spain, Costa Rica, Germany. Japan are going to be dark horses in that group. I can tell you that for free. Group F, Canada will throw curveballs left, right, and centre. Group G is definitely a very competitive group. And Group H as well is also very competitive. South Korea will be a definite dark horse, as well as Ghana. We all know their history at World Cups, and we all know what they can do. Yeah, it's going to be so competitive, and it's going to be so like uncertain, and things it's going to balance on a knife edge. Things can tip either way, and teams could get one injury and completely sway their hopes. And whatever, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. That's why I just thought about that, considering obviously England haven't really dominated. France lost. Germany drew to Hungary, I believe. Germany lost to Hungary even on Saturday. So yeah, it just made me think. It just made me think about what could be. Spain lost as well, which is going to be very, very, very interesting World Cup, no doubt about it. And the last talking point I want to finish up with is going to be Graham Arnold needs to pull something special out of the bag in Qatar. Because I've got a lot of thoughts about this. Got a lot of thoughts about our World Cup hopes. Now, if we just discard what I've said about France for now, and just speak about this from a purely Australian perspective, this is probably one of the weirdest World Cups Australia are probably going to head into, because no one really backs Graham Arnold. No one really likes the way he coaches, and no one really likes him as the national team boss. But he got us there. And he got us there in a way which makes us think, makes me believe anything is possible. Because we shouldn't have got there. We shouldn't have got there. And while you can say we shouldn't have got there, we don't deserve to get there, we'll get embarrassed. You can think that, but you can also think, if we didn't deserve to get there, but we fell into the World Cup, anything's possible. Like, anything is possible. And we pretty much all know that he will be gone after the World Cup. I don't think either party are going to be willing to extend will be willing to extend his contract. So he's just got to go with it. And who does he take? We saw Garang Cole, light up the in the appearance that he had over the weekend. Is he the X factor? Like, is he someone that Graham Arnold just picks just to show that he's got nothing to lose? All chips are down, like whether he's going all in type thing. We got into the World Cup in a way in which we probably didn't deserve to get there. We didn't deserve to get there, but that also makes me think that anything's possible, because he made us believe. He made us believe after the UAE game that we didn't play well, but we got the job done. We didn't play well against Peru, but we got the job done. This whole thing about the Aussie DNA, which was taken the piss out of, especially heading into the game against Peru. Maybe it's real. Maybe something's here. Maybe something is in the air about this national team and about this World Cup that, like, all the stars have aligned. Because it seems like the perfect storm for it to work. You have this team which 99% of fans have felt a lot of apathy towards for a long time. You have a coach which a lot of fans have felt negatively about for a long time. You have this mixture which causes performances which have been below par pretty much since the start of the Asian Cup in 2019. And then you got into the World Cup in a very unconvincing way. In the most unconvincing way. All these negative things might just snowball and turn and just continue into a positive in a sense. I don't know. But he's made me believe. Despite how poor we were against New Zealand in those two friendlies, he's made me believe we're capable of something. Because we've got talent. No doubt we've got talent. And we have that find a way. I think we have that find a way when the chips are down, backs against the wall, you drag ourselves up by the collar and drag ourselves over the line. I think the game against the UAE and the game against Peru showed that. Because we should have lost against Peru. We should have lost. And we probably deserved to lose. But we dragged ourselves up by the collar and was like, no chance, mate. We're getting to this World Cup. Something's happening. Something's happening here. And I'm not the biggest Graham Arnold fan. I'm definitely not. I'm actually the furthest thing from it. I don't think he should be the coach of the Socceroos. But something's happening. He's making me believe. Anything's possible. And that's what you've got to have to feel. You can't feel apathy at this time. You have to get around them. You have to manifest this positive energy. And you just have to believe that things will happen. Because the more you think about, we're going to get destroyed by France, we're going to get destroyed by Denmark, and we'll probably scrape a draw against Tunisia. You can't think that. You got to think, fuck it. Let's go for it. Let's just go. And this squad is probably better than the squad we had in 2018. So let's just go for it. And let's just go and leave nothing behind and put all the chips on the table, go all in, and just believe that anything can happen. Do I think we can get out of the group stage? Fucking oath I think we can get out of the group stage. Do I think we can win a game in the knockout stages? Fucking oath, why not? I don't know what the permutations are. I don't know who will verse should we get through finishing first or second. I mean, heaven forbid we finish first. If we get through, you'd think we'd finish second in the group. I don't know what that mean about who we'd verse next. But that first game against France is going to be huge. And the thing is, if we go to Qatar wanting to play football against France, we're going to get picked apart and destroyed. We need to make it as hard as possible for them, frustrate the life out of them, and hit them on the counter because we've got pace. Mabil, Boyle, Tilly off the bench, Grant Cole. We've got pace. And we've got players who can distribute. Hustich and Moy can distribute very quickly and very well. I don't know. Something's happening here. I think that's enough. I think that's enough of me fantasizing about Australia's World Cup hopes. I'll speak about it more when the time comes, of course. But yeah, I think that's the right place to end these 5 things. That's which I wanted to speak about. And let's finish up with who went into footed. Now, for those who haven't seen this podcast before, basically this is where we go through some things over the weekend, some player or organisation or club or whatever, something that has done something daft or something dumb has happened or whatever. And I think this isn't a player, but it's the whole Paul Pogba situation. Now, I laugh, but I really shouldn't be laughing. He's been involved in some blackmail things and some witchcraft things, which has been floating around Twitter. Some very funny memes have been said about it, been made about it. It's just a very, very interesting case, which I don't really want to laugh about, but it's kind of hard not to find a little bit intriguing and a little bit curious. Or not curious, but a little bit like, what the fuck's going on? But yeah, I guess witchcraft's real. That's what I've come to the conclusion about it. Pretty much ever since I saw it. But I think that's pretty much all I want to say on it right now. Maybe I'll come back next week when more things have developed. But yeah, his brother's now in jail, I think, and Pogba's been accused of witchcraft and all this stuff. Not good at all. But let's finish up with the preview of the week now. There's a North London derby happening on Saturday. Can't wait for that. That's going to be great fun. Just going to be pumped. Going to be pumped for that. And there's a whole lot of 12 o'clock fixtures, and then the Manchester derby, midnight. That's going to be good. That's going to be good fun. That's going to be really good fun. I think United can get a result. I think United will get a result. If I have to give a prediction for that, I'll give a prediction for both big games. I think it'll be Arsenal 2, Tottenham 2, in a good game, in a really fiery, explosive game. And I think it'll be United 1, City 0. I think United will get a result. I think Ten Hag will pull out the bag. But yeah, that's all. That's it for today. Thank you all very much for watching another episode of the 2 Footed Tackle podcast. I appreciate everyone sticking around. Maybe sticking around is probably a good way to say it. But yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like the podcast, notification bell. 2 Footed Tackle podcast on TikTok, Instagram. 2FTPod on Twitter, Anchor, Spotify, Google, Apple Podcast. 5-star rating, subscribe to it, follow it. All the love means the world to me. Share it around, get more people to listen to it. It means the world to me. Thank you all very much for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Speak to you next week. See you guys. Bye.